I've been in finance for 20 years, and in the insurance and financial services industry, it is hugely male dominated, hugely. And I've seen boundaries need to be drawn at work.
Yep.
And what's interesting is there are a lot of the companies I've worked with and worked for that are in a lot of trouble right now because of issues. Like, I mean, the whole Me Too movement last year, we know it's rampant in the entertainment industry, but in finance, it's 85% men. So this happens a lot. And I've had nothing, bad. I'm very good at drawing boundaries, but I remember probably it had to have been at least 15 years ago. I remember one of the advisors in the firm I used to work for was extremely inappropriate, very inappropriate topics of conversation that should not making any advances, but just topics of conversation that I was not comfortable with.
Right.
And I am strong enough to say, hey, here's the deal. You're not going to talk like this. You're not going to talk about this. You just need to chill, or I'm going over your head. I mean, this has to stop. And they were respectful of that. And welcome to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are here today with another one of our No Filter episodes with my trusty sidekick, the marvelous Miss Mendoza. So we'll see what kind of trouble we're going to get into today.
This one might be
This
trouble.
may get us in trouble. So here's what we've got for you today, my friends. We are going to talk about the
incident.
Are we calling it an incident? Isn't it? It is an
encounter.
Incident. All right. So our topic today is boundaries.
Yes.
Or some people's lack of them.
Correct.
Right? So when we're talking about boundaries, we mean work, home, out in the world, wherever.
Yes.
It's just knowing what's okay and what's not. So there's two aspects: knowing what's okay and what's not. And then also, once you know that, being able to enforce that in your own little world.
Yes.
Personally or professionally, so people aren't taking advantage of it.
Correct.
Because I think a lot of times we either don't set boundaries, or we set them and forget them, and let people kind of push past them. So what do you think of when you think of boundaries?
So a lot of that kind of comes to me as like being able to pick up on social cues, right? Because I like to think of myself as being a rather nice person.
I think you're nice. I'm usually not, but I think you are.
And thank you. I think you're nice, Kristen. But if someone's kind of starting to cross those, I'll try to give some hints, like stepping away, right? Like the backward
if they're in your
walk,
space.
Yeah, the backward step is like, let's put a little bit more distance in between us. Trying to wrap up the conversation, like, great to talk to you. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I've got to run. I've got a call I need to take.
Yep.
And some people don't pick up on that. And they just
So why do you think people, because there are some people that I'm like, short of me knocking you over the head, you're not getting what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
Is it just lack of awareness?
That
lack of home training, as we would say in the South?
Yes. I also think some people are, so our friend Brandon Smith would call those people vampires.
Yes.
That they just
they
suck
drain your energy.
Right? Because they want to keep talking to you and keep you engaged, and that's kind of an inner thing.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay.
And if you can't let me go and pick up on those signs, there's something
wrong.
else going on.
So for us, how can we, that's an easy one. Like, I feel like I've learned tactics, especially at networking meetings where people just talk and talk and talk.
Yes.
I've learned tactics, if you will, to be able to excuse myself or say, hey, you know what, I need to go over here. Or, you know what, my business partner just walked in. Let me go say hello. It was great talking with you. That you can exit a conversation quick.
Yes.
The backing up thing is true, because some people will get in your space. Mm-hmm. And I'm a hugger, and that's even one too, because there's some people that aren't huggers.
Yeah.
So you kind of just, I know who those people are. So I'm not usually hugging people the first time I meet them.
Well, and that's where I like to give a little leeway. It's also, I'm going to say it's a Southern thing,
it
right?
Is a Southern
like we
thing.
like to touch on the arm, and it's just
we call it by sweetie.
Call you darling.
Yep.
And so if that's not your jive and your thing, it's easier to kind of give some cues before coming down with axe and saying.
So those are, I mean, to me, the not monopolizing the conversation, letting people get away and take a break when so you're not taking all their time or not getting in their space. Those to me should be common sense. But then sometimes people go overboard. So the incident we were talking about, so those of you guys that follow me on social may have read this. If you haven't, we'll give you a little scenario, because this was boundaries being tested at its, and I will tell you, go back and look at my Facebook feed. This got more engagement than I think most of my posts have this year.
Very visceral reaction to this.
That's what I'm hearing from most people. So do you want me to tell the story?
You should. Well,
you tell me how you heard it, or do you want me to just tell you the story first?
Because you have more of the details.
I was there.
I know you were out in public, gas station.
I was at a gas station. All right, so here's what happened. I was at a gas station. I had to go to the doctor, injured my back, went and saw my doc, who's fantastic. So it's not like I'm dressed up. I'm literally in sweatpants and a tank top and like a jacket or a hoodie or something like that.
Yeah.
Looking a hot mess because I just come from working out with the doctor. So I go to the gas station to get gas. The car is next to me at the pump, and the guy proceeds to tell me that he said, "You're really pretty." And I know I have a lot of friends that don't like that and they think that's rude and forward. I'm like, oh, well, I thought it was nice, very sweet. I was like, oh, thank you very much. Went in the store, came back out, still there. And then he proceeds to ask if I'm single. And I'm like, well, first of all, let me back up a little bit. This kid is like late 20s, early 30s. I could have literally probably been his mother, but not quite, but close. But he was young for sure. Yeah. So he asked if I'm single, which I don't know. I mean, guys, let me know if I'm off here. Do people normally try to pick up chicks at the gas station? I don't know. Maybe they do. But so normal conversation here. Ask if I'm single. Yeah. I tell him no. I am, but I don't. I mean, I'm not going to tell a random person at a gas station, yes, I'm single. Pray on me.
Come to follow me home.
Exactly. So I said no.
Yeah. Yes.
And he said, oh, okay. And then not even 10 seconds later, he proceeds to look at me and goes, if you were single, would you insert F word me? And I mean,
the story
my jaw just, my jaw dropped. Like I seriously, it took me, I responded pretty quickly, but it took me a second to go, my head was going, did I just hear that?
Right.
Like, did this come in an outdoor voice? You actually said this out loud.
Yeah.
So I responded, probably not what he was looking to hear, but so here I am, I'm sitting here going, holy crap. And I did respond, kind of told him what I thought. The guy behind us, who was probably in his 70s with this, Vietnam vet hat on, he stood there. He must have heard it because he wouldn't get in his car until after I was in my car and drove off, which I thought was he didn't say anything to me, but he waited to get in his car.
Whatever was happening, it concerned
and so,
him.
And the guy was not mean or anything. He just said it. So I responded to him, and I left and went about my business. But I was shook up for a couple reasons. One, what I didn't put in the post, if any of you guys read the post, this kid I mentioned, late 20s, early 30s. But I don't know what you were picturing when I'm telling this story. This was a guy driving an Infiniti SUV in a business suit, and he was a nice looking guy. He's a kid where if somebody, I knew somebody in their 20s and 30s, one of your employees, I'm like, oh, he looks like a nice guy. Not the skeezy person you think of that says this thing out loud.
Right.
So I got in the car. I was a little shooken up. I called a guy friend of mine, and was like, hey, here's what just happened. I just need you to stay on the phone with me for just a minute, because that for some reason made me feel better. Now, I'm a female. I'm a 2nd degree black belt. I can carry a gun. I don't, but I feel like I'm pretty tough and can take care of myself and all that, but it definitely shook me up. I got in the car. I was like, are you kidding? And then it pissed me off, honestly. Yeah. Yep. That's why I got home and I wrote about it on Facebook. But here's what was interesting. It got tons of engagement. I got so many comments, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. Who says stuff like that?
Yep.
Most every comment was like, oh, this happened to me. This happens all the time. I had that happen to me last week. So the women that were commenting, almost to a person, had a similar experience. That's severe. Like that, where somebody is that direct and that forceful. Now, fortunately, I was in a public place. I can defend myself, but I'm thinking, as a mom of 3 girls, I got kind of ticked about it.
Yeah.
I will say I did have several of my guy friends comment. A bunch of them sent me direct messages. A bunch of them texted me and just were like, hey, I want you to know, I'm so sorry that happened. I hate that there are people like that. Not all guys. So a lot of my guy friends were like so apologetic and sweet about it. So I don't mean this as a man bashing thing, but it's like, that's a boundary issue. So my thought is, if this kid is out there saying that, it had to have worked for him.
Right.
Because you aren't just out repeating this to a middle-aged woman at a gas station.
Right.
If this has not worked for someone. So,
right.
I mean, you're in the millennial generation. Is that a thing? I mean, is this what happens? Is this what you kids are doing now? It's not you because you were mortified.
Yes. And it, unfortunately, yes. And one of the things that kind of put me off about it is the sheer simplicity of the fact that you were getting gas, which is something that we all have to stop and do.
Right. I wasn't on a date. I wasn't at a bar. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've always been told, if you're out by yourself getting gas, me as a female, obviously don't be stopping at night. Don't, be aware of your surroundings, all of this kind of stuff. So already getting gas is a little bit edgy.
Which honestly, that sucks that we have to worry about that. I mean, we do, but it just stinks.
And you're not always with someone when you need to get gas. So it's this innocent thing that you were out doing. This happened. So that's one of the things.
But my friends that commented said they've had it happen at the mall. There were other gas station incidents. They've had it happen at the mall. They've definitely had it happen when they're out, like dinner, bars, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the environment is just irrelevant. I mean, I was just more like, that's a boundary issue. Now, for me, I very quickly drew a line and let him know where I stood with that offer.
Yeah.
And he left it alone. There was nothing after that. He got in his car and took off.
Sure.
But some people may not. Some people may want to push the boundary even more.
Right. Right.
So,
and that may have been because he knew that other gentleman was standing.
I think I could have taken the other gentleman because he was an older. But it could have been. It could have been.
Yeah. Like listening or whatever the case is, because.
It took me back. So it started thinking, and I talked to my girls about it.
Yes.
My middle one, my teenager, who's 14, she originally laughed. She thought she's like, oh my God, that's so funny. I'm like, no, this is not funny. Like, you can't think this is funny because she's not been in a situation like that. She's not at dating age or anything like that. So she doesn't know. I mean, so I was like, holy cow, like we need to really quickly learn where boundaries need to be drawn with people. I mean, and not just, this was an out in the world boundary. This is like, hey, I'm not going to let somebody out here talk to me.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I have a tendency, just because of my no filter approach, I have a tendency to say what I think anyway. So if somebody's going to cross a line with me, they're going to really quickly know it. But what frightened me is having daughters and having friends who are not as assertive as I am. What happens to them?
What do you say?
What do you say? I mean, they just do they just retreat? Do they go, oh my gosh? Do they giggle? Do they? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that it was scary. I was scared more for other people than I was for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I often feel the boundaries we set for ourselves, they started a long time ago, right? Like they began somewhere else.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm kind of seeing out of this, just as you and I are talking, is that when and if, which we hope it doesn't, but if that happened to any one of your daughters, I have a sense that they're going to know how to handle it as well.
Heaven forbid it happened to my middle daughter. She will kick the booty of whoever says something.
There you go. Be wary of who you mess with. Yeah.
But they would have no way of knowing that. Yeah.
But it is a thing that we just need to be aware of, that we're going to be in these situations, and it may be where you don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
And so we just need to be prepared.
So let's shift a little bit and talk about this here, because I've also had this happen. So this was the out in the world. We've obviously got personal things too, and out in the world could mean friends, family, public, whatever. But I see this. I've been in finance for 20 years, and in the insurance and financial services industry, it is hugely male dominated, hugely. And I've seen boundaries need to be drawn at work.
Yep.
And what's interesting is there are a lot of the companies I've worked with and worked for that are in a lot of trouble right now because of issues. Like, I mean, the whole Me Too movement last year, we know it's rampant in the entertainment industry, but in finance, it's 85% men. So this happens a lot. And I've had nothing, bad. I'm very good at drawing boundaries, but I remember probably it had to have been at least 15 years ago. I remember one of the advisors in the firm I used to work for was extremely inappropriate, very inappropriate topics of conversation that should not making any advances, but just topics of conversation that I was not comfortable with.
Right.
And I am strong enough to say, hey, here's the deal. You're not going to talk like this. You're not going to talk about this. You just need to chill, or I'm going over your head. I mean, this has to stop. And they were respectful of that. But then I had the conversation with one of the partners that I work with. I'm like, here's the deal. I'm strong enough to draw my own boundaries, but you guys are going to get a 20-year-old intern in here that somebody says something inappropriate, and they're going to go home and tell daddy, and daddy's going to get ticked.
Right.
And you're going to be in the middle of a lawsuit. And I think a lot of times that's what happens is the lawsuits we hear about come up so much later. And I think it's because people weren't drawing boundaries as, hey, this is not appropriate. You can't talk like this, act like this, whatever. Your friend group's a little different. Like your friends, your friends. And I've got friends that have potty mouths, and I've got friends who are very straight-laced, and we just know and accept, but not anything hurtful.
Sure.
But I think at work, it gets to be tough, especially for younger people, or actually not even just younger people. I think for a lot of people to know where to draw our boundary, or to know that it's okay to draw a boundary.
And a lot of that comes down to the fact that we're scared we're going to lose our jobs
and
if we speak up and say something.
That's totally fair, because people I'm not naming names, but I know people who are no longer with their company, and they may not have been fired for speaking up, but the way they were treated after putting some of the favorite people on notice, if you will, they were basically pushed out. And this happens so much. And I think we'll start to see as people get stronger. And this is not just women. I will say it's predominantly women. But I have seen it with guys too, who just aren't one of the group, the guys or something. I don't know. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm bashing the guys with this. My experience have been mostly around that. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the solution is, other than letting everyone know it's okay to draw boundaries, and trying to figure out within your own style and your personality how you can do that for you. First of all, what are your boundaries, and then how you can draw them, so that way if people cross them, you can stand up.
Yeah.
How do you do that in your own world?
How do I draw my boundaries?
I mean, you work with your husband, so we'll just pull him around and make him stand up for you if something happens. Yeah. I mean, because it's funny because not everybody's there. Like the gas station, nobody. My guy friends were calling me like, "Oh, I wish I would have been there. I would have pummeled." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, if you were there, probably wouldn't have said it.
It wouldn't have happened." Exactly. Well, yeah, and I will say, obviously, Isaac and I do work together, but he's not in every boardroom I walk into. Right. And often I am the only female, and often on top of that, the youngest. Yep. In a couple of episodes previously, we talked about figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Yep. And I feel like this is kind of tied into that, right? Like you have to answer. Yep. What you like and what you don't,
what
and
you're comfortable with, and what you're not.
Yeah. And you can deliver that the first time someone crosses the line in a nice way.
Right.
But when they continue to push that boundary is when the niceness has to go away.
Right. And you can do that because, like, it's funny. And my friends to this day tease me. Some of the guys that I used to work with, I don't cuss a lot at work. I've said that before. I do more in my personal life, but I just am not the type that does it professionally. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just kind of who I've always been. Well, I don't mind if other people cuss, but there are a couple words, there's like 3 or 4 of them that I can't tolerate. Like I literally can't tolerate. And so when I hear somebody say that, I was like, you got to pick another word. And that's all I say. Yeah. You got to pick another word.
Yes.
So to this day, some of the guys I've known for 20 years, they have like goofy pretend words that they'll insert because they know I'll get offended by the real words. Yeah. And it's funny, and it's kind of turned into a running joke, but they were respectful of it. They knew that there were, I'm not going to say them because I can't even spell them. I mean, they're bad words. So, but those are the ones that when I hear them, I cringe.
Yes.
But I stood up. Like the first time they said it, I was like, got to find new words.
Yes, yeah. And that's a good point that you brought up is if someone's crossing a boundary and you don't
they
step
just keep
up
doing it.
and you
Then it's not your fault. Yeah.
You kind
Or
of give
their
them
fault.
permission. Yeah, because you
For
didn't, because they're
sure.
going to think that's okay.
Yep.
Because you didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then that's when it also, I thought we were friends.
It
I
gets
thought we
awkward.
could joke
Yeah.
around like that.
And
Why
this
all of a
is-
sudden?
That's what I always tell people. Like, I say this all the time. You teach people how to treat you. You absolutely, whether they're treating you good or bad, however they're treating you is because that's what you've put up with or what you've tolerated.
Yeah.
If you want them to act differently, you have to tell them, respectfully,
Right.
here's what I need, or here's
Right.
what I'd like to see. Now, if I'd never said that, you're right. They would have kept on saying it. Then I may just distance, like, what the heck? I thought we were friends. But I'm very clear on what I will tolerate and what I want. No judgment about it. I don't care. Like, one of my closest girlfriends, we kind of joke because she's blonde and I'm brunette, so we call each other salt and pepper. And we are so much alike. Like, she's awesome and I love her to death. She just cusses a lot and I don't.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's a running joke between, I never get offended when she does it. It's hysterical. I just don't do it.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not a judgment thing when you set boundaries. It's just what
Right.
works for you.
Right.
So, my closest friends may not have the same boundaries as I do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's just what you're comfortable with, like in your own gut.
Yeah. That kind of made me think too, as you were saying that. We've made boundaries a dirty word. And I don't
You know
think
what?
boundaries
I think
is-
it does kind of have
yeah.
a negative connotation. Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's not a dirty word.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So I loved what you said. Setting boundaries, it doesn't mean,
Yeah. It's just-
don't
it's-
talk to me. We can't be friends. It's
Right.
just, these are the things that I just are not my realm.
My friends, my clients, the people that are kind of in my circle, we're all very different. Now, we have a lot of similarities or that I wouldn't be close with them. I mean, you got to have something in common with people, but we have different hobbies, we have different interests, we have different life situations, different political, we talk about, if you guys that follow me, I don't discuss religion or politics online. I just don't. I think it's polarizing and I would rather be collaborative instead of polarizing. I'll throw some Bible verses in there and stuff like that when they speak to me, but that's just because they speak to me.
Right. Yeah.
It's not me being preachy. So it's, I've got friends all across the spectrum but they're boundaries. Like, people know what they can and can't talk about with me. I mean, I don't care. You can talk politics 101 all day long.
Yeah.
But which is interesting because I'm kind of since I don't debate it a lot, I just feel like everybody's entitled to their own opinion, their own boundaries, their own thoughts. And it's not my job to challenge them unless they infringe on mine.
Right. Yeah.
And then we've got to find the middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where are some areas, Miss Mendoza, that you feel like people probably need to draw some boundaries but are hesitant to? I mean, I definitely think in relationships for sure.
Definitely
and
relationships, definitely work. And also when I think work, because I'm kind of going from the bottom up as we were talking about younger individuals in the workplace,
Okay.
right? Because you are in kind of moving from there upward, because I'm thinking, okay, you get a job and you're just thankful to be there, right? You just want to come to work,
You get
do
a
your
paycheck, you
job,
come- yep.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not cause any issues.
Okay.
And so part of why I feel, especially as women, we don't speak up if our boundaries are crossed because we don't want to cause an issue.
Yep.
But being in that, and this is going to sound total woo-woo, but
Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me adjust my chair.
sit down.
Getting woo-woo on me.
Valuing yourself.
Okay.
Okay, so even though
That's not too
you
woo-woo.
are at the bottom of the totem pole,
Yeah.
you are still a human being.
For sure.
So boundaries are boundaries, and
Yep.
there's no debate about that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be at a company for 10 years in order for you to be like, okay, and now you
Yep.
are allowed to have boundaries.
Correct. And I think that's important because here's the deal. If you have a boundary that is, and I'm not saying be silly and be crazy with your boundaries, but
Yeah,
if there's
yeah.
something that's important to you that you're like, this is where I draw the line. And if they can't respect that boundary, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
They're not, my phrase,
Yeah.
they're not your people. So if the
Yeah.
boundaries aren't something they can respect, I would check
Yeah.
where you are.
And trust what you feel like is happening. So like,
Yeah.
you kind of had that split moment of like, did he really just say
Yeah.
that? Like I didn't hear something wrong.
Right.
So this reminded me, you and I talk a lot about the Golden Girls.
Oh my God. right, so I don't know for everybody listening. I don't know. Drop us a little Golden Girl comment. I mean, I love the Golden. Which is your favorite?
Yeah,
it's really sad. I love the Golden Girls.
I do. I love them.
And the Dern Harmlock channel is doing like a marathon now, so I'll get ready to go to bed. I'm like,
time to watch the Golden Girls.
The Golden Girls are on for the next 18 hours.
Love them.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead.
Sorry. So there's this episode where Rose, and if you don't watch the show, Rose is very
sweet, very kind,
unassuming.
Innocent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes to the dentist, and this dentist brushes her chest.
Okay.
So she goes back to the house with the girls, and she says, I think that this happened, but I'm not sure. Maybe it was an accident.
Yeah.
Maybe he was reaching over to get something, So she talked herself out of it, right? So she goes back, I don't know, however long after, and he does the same thing, brushes her chest, and then, makes a comment.
Oh.
To
so now she is sure that that's what he said. Okay.
So then she, of course she sets up in the chair and she was like, you're doing this to me. And of course he's denying it. And it's this whole thing.
Yeah.
But she had to suffer through that twice because she wasn't really, she second guessed herself on that first encounter.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, don't knock the dentist out, but
I know. That was my first reaction. I'm like, I could block the arm and probably fly. Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's true.
If it's
so did the episode end with Blanche then going in to make an appointment with the same dentist? Because I would think she'd probably enjoy that.
That would have been funny. Yeah,
we need some stronger writing.
We need to resurrect the show.
All right, but that makes. I mean, that's true though, because so many times we're like, here's. It's okay if you didn't pick up on it the first time. I'd love everybody to be able to pick up on that gut feeling.
Right.
But sometimes we have it and we're like, am I right? Am I not right? And we ignore it. But the next time it shows itself, then you got to kind of realize, like, all right, now this is time to really pay attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think boundaries they're tricky, but they're critical.
They are. Yeah. Yeah. And, and because they're different for everyone else is where it kind of gets a little tricky, right? Because let's reverse the scenario of the gas station.
Yep.
If you would have said that to him.
Oh, my God. Really? Could you imagine me saying that?
But
in theory, let me think. I'm with you.
You would have.
He was not.
Oh, okay. Another girl. Let's
not me.
Kristen leaves. He's still pumping gas.
Yeah.
Because he's got this honking SUV. Yeah. Another girl pulls up.
Yeah.
Says the same thing. She says, thank you. And gives him her number.
Yeah.
Or again, reverse it. What if another lady had been like, you're very attractive, sir.
That's what I was about to say. What if a girl said that to the guy?
And then him being low standards.
Well, I was going to say most of the guys I know. That was part of my response to him was well, good luck with whichever.
Yeah.
Can I say skank with a PG rating? I said, that's really what I said. I was like, I gave him I gave him my unequivocal response. I said, and good luck to you with whatever skank manages to say yes to
because
that.
If he's willing to say that to you, if someone is willing to say that to him, they clearly think that there's no boundary issue there.
Yeah.
That's just how you meet people.
I hope not. Good Lord, this is going to be fun next decade for me.
Telling you.
So the main thing is you've got to know what you will and won't tolerate. Yeah. I think that's first and foremost with drawing boundaries, and understand that it is okay to have a boundary, personally, professionally, in relationships, out in public, whatever it is.
Not a bad word.
I'm not saying you got to smart off. I did well to not totally scream and make a scene and cuss him out.
Yeah.
And knock him to the ground because that was what my insides wanted to do. I just respond because that would have escalated the situation. So I think there's ways to respond without escalating the situation.
Agreed.
Which is a challenge for me personally. I'm like, but all my guy friends were like, you should have taken him out. You should have done this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But
maybe we just need to make you a card that you hold up almost
I know.
Officer and be like, by the way, I have.
We're going to be selling bumper stickers next. Yeah. But it's okay. It's just enough to know that you have the boundaries, but know what they are and then enforce them when you need to. Like you don't need to run around. I don't need to run around with a sticker.
Right.
I could.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll thwart some of this from happening, but.
Yeah. Well, just when you need it. You just whip it out when you need it.
All right.
Yeah.
So what do you think in terms of helping others? My first thought is it's okay to have boundaries.
Yep.
Know what yours are. That's going to be critical. And especially you guys listening, especially for women. And I was going to say younger, but it's not. I mean, I have friends my age that have trouble with this, and they get treated like crap because they don't draw the line, or they just tolerate stuff. So I think know what you're willing to accept and what you're not. And quit tolerating stuff you don't need to.
Yeah. I mean, if you've stepped up and made your boundaries known and they're continuing to be pushed, then you need to look at getting out of that situation.
You need to, whether it's a situation, a friendship, a relationship, whatever, is you've got to make sure that you're being respected. Because like I said, and I'll close with this, you teach people how to treat you. And if you're not teaching them, or you're allowing them to treat you a different way than you know you deserve, then it's going to be a really painful relationship.
And the only thing I would add is accept that something like this may happen and premeditate on how you would handle it.
Yeah, be aware.
Because in the moment, it will catch you off guard, and you're not going to know what to say. But if you think about, okay, if this happens, if this is XYZ situation, then this is what I will do. Yeah.
And I think that's a good advice, because it, like I said, it definitely caught me off guard. Like it really caught me off guard, and I was able to kind of gain my composure pretty quick. Like it was probably like a millisecond that I paused, but my brain was going, holy cow, he actually said that with his outdoor voice. So it, it's just being aware. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, as always, the marvelous Miss Mendoza, thank you for tackling the boundary topic with me.
No problem.
I will pray that you don't have to encounter any of this, but
I need to practice it.
We'll practice your response.
Some kicks and side chops.
We'll work on terms. We'll work on terms.
That's what that was. Side chop.
We'll offer you martial artist side chops. It's not. Maybe that's your new name. All right, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, keep pushing past those limits.